Mastering Cyber Threat Modeling. Only one person holds the key to safeguarding our organization's most valuable assets. Who in our organization determines the primary goal of threat modeling, and what is its principal objective in terms of identifying and mitigating cyber risks to our assets and data? As I ventured into the realm of cyber threat modeling, I couldn't help but think of the complexities involved in identifying and mitigating cyber risks to our assets and data. It was like navigating a maze, where each path revealed new challenges and uncertainties. My journey began with a series of meetings with our organization's top executives, where we discussed the importance of threat modeling in today's digital landscape. One thing became clear: the primary goal of threat modeling was not to identify every possible threat, but to prioritize and focus on the most critical ones. We needed to determine which assets and data required the most protection, and allocate our resources accordingly. To achieve this, we established a cross-functional team comprising representatives from various departments, including IT, security, and business operations. This diverse group brought unique perspectives and expertise to the table, allowing us to examine the problem from multiple angles. Our first task was to identify the most valuable assets and data within our organization. We brainstormed and compiled a list, which included everything from customer information and financial records to intellectual property and trade secrets. This exercise helped us understand what we needed to protect and why. Next, we analyzed the potential threats to these assets and data. We considered various scenarios, from external hackers and insider threats to natural disasters and technological failures. This was a daunting task, but we knew that understanding the threats was crucial to developing effective countermeasures. As we delved deeper into the process, I realized that threat modeling was not just about identifying risks, but also about understanding the motivations and tactics of potential attackers. We needed to think like our adversaries, anticipating their moves and developing strategies to counter them. One of the most significant challenges we faced was prioritizing the threats. With limited resources, we couldn't tackle every potential risk simultaneously. We had to focus on the most critical ones, those that could cause the most harm to our organization and its stakeholders. To achieve this, we developed a threat scoring system, which assigned a numerical value to each threat based on its likelihood and potential impact. This allowed us to objectively evaluate the threats and allocate our resources effectively. As we continued to refine our threat modeling approach, I realized that it was not a one-time exercise, but an ongoing process. Threats were constantly evolving, and we needed to stay ahead of the curve to remain effective. To ensure this, we established a regular review and update cycle, where we reassessed our priorities and adjusted our countermeasures accordingly. This allowed us to stay flexible and adapt to changing circumstances, minimizing the risk of being caught off guard. Throughout this journey, I was struck by the importance of collaboration and communication. Threat modeling was not a solo endeavor, but a team effort that required input and buy-in from various stakeholders. We needed to work together to identify the most critical threats and develop effective countermeasures. In the end, our threat modeling approach helped us to identify and prioritize the most critical risks to our assets and data. We developed targeted countermeasures, allocating our resources effectively and minimizing the risk of cyber attacks. As I looked back on this experience, I realized that threat modeling was not just about identifying risks, but about developing a mindset that acknowledged the uncertainty and complexity of the cyber landscape. It was about being proactive, anticipating potential threats, and developing strategies to stay ahead of the curve. In the context of cyber threat modeling, the primary goal is to identify, assess, and prioritize potential cyber threats to an organization's assets and data. The principal objective is to develop a comprehensive understanding of the threats and vulnerabilities that could compromise the confidentiality, integrity, and availability of sensitive information and systems. The person responsible for determining the primary goal of threat modeling typically falls under the role of a Chief Information Security Officer, CISO, Chief Risk Officer, CRO, or a senior security leader. This individual is responsible for overseeing the organization's overall cybersecurity strategy and ensuring that it aligns with business objectives. The threat modeling process involves a structured approach to identifying, analyzing, and prioritizing threats. The principal objective is to identify the most critical assets and data, understand the attack vectors and vulnerabilities, and develop mitigation strategies to reduce the risk of a cyber attack. The threat modeling process typically involves the following steps. 1. Identify critical assets and data. The first step is to identify the most critical assets and data that require protection. This includes sensitive customer information, financial data, intellectual property, and business-critical systems. 2. Understand attack vectors. The next step is to identify the potential attack vectors that could be used to compromise the identified assets and data. This includes understanding the motivations and tactics of potential attackers, such as hackers, nation-states, or insiders. 3. Identify vulnerabilities. The third step is to identify vulnerabilities in the organization's systems, networks, and applications that could be exploited by attackers. This includes understanding the security controls and countermeasures currently in place. 4. Analyze threats. The fourth step is to analyze the threats and assess the likelihood and potential impact of each identified threat. This involves using threat intelligence and industry trends to inform the analysis. 5. Prioritize threats. The fifth step is to prioritize the threats based on their likelihood and potential impact. This involves identifying the most critical threats that require immediate attention. 6. Develop mitigation strategies. The final step is to develop mitigation strategies to reduce the risk of a cyber attack. This includes implementing security controls, such as firewalls, intrusion detection systems, and encryption, as well as developing incident response plans and conducting regular security testing and vulnerability assessments. The principal objective of threat modeling is to provide a proactive approach to identifying and mitigating cyber risks. By understanding the threats and vulnerabilities, organizations can prioritize their security efforts and allocate resources more effectively to protect their most critical assets and data. The benefits of threat modeling include improved threat detection and response, enhanced security posture, better alignment of security efforts with business objectives, increased incident response preparedness, more effective resource allocation. In summary, the primary goal of threat modeling is to identify, assess, and prioritize potential cyber threats to an organization's assets and data. The principal objective is to develop a comprehensive understanding of the threats and vulnerabilities and to develop mitigation strategies to reduce the risk of a cyber attack. The threat modeling process involves a structured approach to identifying, analyzing, and prioritizing threats, and the benefits include improved threat detection and response, enhanced security posture, and more effective resource allocation.